Hello, everybody, and welcome into our first weekly baseball update here on Between the Ears. I'm Schuyler Callihan. Joined with me is Christopher Hall. I know we're obviously deep into basketball season, but we're going to also bring you once a week and maybe even a second episode once we get closer towards the end of the season and maybe into the Big 12 tournament play. Some updates on the baseball team, how things are going on the diamond for Andy Mazey's boys. And right now, they're off to a fairly good, a fairly good start, 4-3. They opened up the season down in Georgia against Georgia Southern. They only won one game there against a very good Georgia Southern team. But since then, they have won a big game, a midweek game against Maryland, who's a ranked team. And then they also went out to Arizona and took 2 of 3 from the Wildcats. So, Chris, I mean, I don't know that you and I really envisioned this good of a start. I know 4-3 doesn't sound great, but when you look at the competition, I mean, I honestly thought they would be at least 500 right now, maybe more likely under 500 at this point.
Yeah, you talked about the opening series at Georgia Southern. That's a program that hosted an NCAA regional last year. It was the first one. They returned the bulk of their production, and West Virginia dropped the first 2 games. Held a lead in the first game with Ben Hampton. Bullpen gave up 3 runs in the seventh, and that was all she wrote. Game two, kind of similar, just tough pitching until Sunday. Their bats broke out, and really they've been hot ever since. They produced, I think it was 21 runs, 22 runs in 2 games when they went and beat Maryland, and then go beat an Arizona team, travel cross country, beat a Pac-12 team that's going to pretty much be in the running for the Pac-12 championship, and they're predicted to be in the postseason as well, along with Georgia Southern. So um, Arizona's not ranked. They were on the cusp of being ranked last week. They had beat number 2 Tennessee the week prior in the Desert Classic. So it was a huge series win. To win game one out there was really big. If you're not familiar with baseball, winning game one on the weekend is one of the hardest things to do. It's on Friday night. Usually the stadium's packed, rocking. Everyone's excited because it's the first game. To go in there and do that on the road was huge. Hampton didn't get the decision on that. Again, the bullpen gave up the lead, but the bats got hot. JJ Weatherhold's been playing well. You got a handful of freshmen that stepped up at times. So it's been a great start. Like you said, we probably envisioned at best 500 right. Or probably more likely 3 and 4. You probably thought maybe they'd steal one out in Arizona. Definitely didn't think they'd go over to Maryland. They were 14th, I believe, in the highest of the polls in the D1 American poll. So that was a huge win. That's a big tournament resume builder. They're already off to a hot start when you're looking at the resume. It would be better if they could have won that series at Georgia Southern, but that's not a bad series loss at all.
No.
I know Georgia Southern went the Power Five, then you get the basketball, it's Power 6, 7, whoever if you want the AAC or the Big East in that mix. Baseball's far different. You're in a hotbed area of baseball teams, small schools. You hear UNC Greensboro, and you're thinking, well, they can't be good at baseball. Well, guess what? They're usually in the post.
Tournament.
They got them coming up in a 2 game midweek, so it's not going to get any easier. As tough as the schedule has been, but it's definitely exciting. It's definitely encouraging that they started off 4-3.
It was really exciting to see how they won that first game in Arizona, stealing home. I mean, that's 2 times already this season where they've stolen home. And we heard Randy Mazey say in his preseason press conference, like, "Hey, we're going to be a different team this year. Obviously, we still have some guys that can run the base as well, but they're going to have more pop in that lineup this year." We kind of thought, okay, well, they're probably not going to be as aggressive on the base paths, and that's not been the case at all. I mean, they have been maybe just as aggressive as years past, maybe not quite as much, but to be able to steal home twice, and especially in that situation, and if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, I believe both of those occasions the count was 0-2 with two outs in both of those situations. So for them to have that type of risk and for it to pay off twice says a lot about, I guess, kind of their execution and I get in the confidence that Randy Mazey has in his team. But
Well,
aside from that,
the second one at Arizona, JJ, that was in the 11th inning.
yeah,
JJ hit a double to get on base, stole third by the process of one guy getting out. and then stole home on the 0-2 count with 2 outs.
Yeah.
So that was a JJ Weatherholt walk off, getting 2 steals. I mean, the kid's playing incredible. Early Big 12 Player of the Year.
Yeah, I mean, and great segue because I was going to ask you about him right now. I mean, he just won Big 12 Player of the Week. He's hitting the ball extremely well. He was fairly good last year as a true freshman. I don't know if we can really tap into what these kids' ceilings are because I mean, baseball is baseball. You're going to fail 70% of the time and still have I mean, that still is considered a success. But when you look at JJ Weatherholt, do you see him being one of these guys that can really, I guess, lead this team into the future? I mean, I know it's a second year, but is he kind of a building stone for this team right now?
Oh, absolutely. You could see it last year as a freshman. He was a baseball player. Some silly say that, but Randy Mays, he goes and gets
He can do it
baseball.
all.
And here's a kid, that just like in football or in basketball, they went and found this kid. Wasn't he was fairly highly recruited, but they brought him to West Virginia, and you're seeing the results now. And you heard Maisie talk at the beginning of the year that NIL will be beneficial for West Virginia, and here's why. They go out, they grind on the recruiting trail, find a kid like Weatherholt. You don't want a team like Florida to come in and say, "Hey, come play for us. Here's the money." And that's really, yeah, he's that good that you can build on, but you got to be able to keep him in there. Now he picked West Virginia over a lot of other schools that you would think that have the NIL money. So he may be that rare, you know, young athlete that money's not that high a concern, but he's got the talent. They have definitely 100% can build around him. Which this year, what you're looking for is guys around him that can produce as well. So they have to pitch to Jake. He's been outstanding. He's hitting almost 100 on the year, a couple home runs. Talked about that Arizona game, basically won it there at the end for him with 2 steals. I mean, he's doing everything that you can possibly ask him to do to win games. He put West Virginia on the board, I think, on game 3 Sunday with a 2-run home run to give them the early advantage. So his hitting has been timely and much needed in areas. Uh, his RBIs aren't there because the guy's in front. He's batting second, so you got to get the lead off in scoring position. I think all his RBIs came on both home runs, so you want to see if that 8-9 guy can get on, maybe get him, kind of get them batted around to get to the 3 or 4 hole hitter. So he's having like I said, an all caliber Big 12 All Player of the Year candidate early. I mean, he's just having that kind of year, and you kind of look at some of the guys around him. Grant Hussey went over for his first 2 days, and then you bring in Sam White, who's now leading the team in batting average, freshman, hitting 478, home run, a couple RBIs. I mean, you take out Hussey and you bring in someone, and he got to go off as a freshman. Hussey had a hot start last year. Hussey had a pretty solid weekend over the weekend. He came back into the lineup. I believe, yes, he did. He did have a home run over the weekend. So they've got bats. A lot of this talent is young. They lost obviously Victor Spot last year. Austin Davis had another year because of COVID, but he ends up transferring to TCU. But they have a lot of young talent, and I think that bodes well for the future. And we just talked about the record. When you have freshmen traveling across country and winning at Arizona, that's big time. They do have a senior leader as well, and Dan Leonard behind the plate. He's gotten a little bit of a slow start at the plate, but he kind of had that slow start last year and got really hot at Big 12 play. So he's more than capable, and it's kind of exciting to know that hey, they've got offensive pop, and Dane Leonard hasn't necessarily gotten hot yet, and that was kind of a bat that you were hoping for, and you were really hoping for Grant Hussey to progress from last season after the way he kind of collapsed at the end of the year. And that even though he started off slow, now he's starting to get into rhythm. So Mays kind of got a mix of guys offensively. Talk about the base stealing. They don't have to manufacture in base stealing. It's just different. Now they're using base stealing to kind of be that dagger, or if they have to produce a run like they did at Arizona, they can use it that way. But when you're getting home runs, one swing of the bat, I think every coach, every fan loves that because that's a quick way to score runs.
Yeah, it's quick strike for sure. And really, I think a lot of people don't realize too. Because obviously college baseball doesn't have the popularity that the other sports do, but not all these kids are on scholarship or full ride scholarships. Like I think baseball, I can't remember the exact number because it's changed since I played, but when I was playing, it was only like 15 maybe
I think
that are
it's 30. I think they dropped it to 13.
yeah. So they've dropped it
It's,
since.
it's weird. They still have a scholar. It's yeah, it's completely weird and nonsense. And there's still 5 kids, so yeah, it's there's wild things and there's grants and they still kind of get a scholarship, but it's not. Yeah, it's weird.
It's not as
A lot
easy
of people
or as
a lot
smooth as the football and basketball stuff.
yeah. So think about it. Football. You have 22 starters, right? Offense, defense, and then you can say you need NFL has 53-man roster, right? So you don't need a ton. So college football gets 85 scholarships. Basketball, you only got 5 guys on the floor. You get 13. Baseball, there's 9 guys. How many pitchers do you need?
A ton.
Here's 13 scholarships. Good luck, guys. So yeah, and again, there's a lot of like it's weird how it works. Yeah, it's a goofy system they got.
Yeah, Maisie's kind of voiced his frustrations about that in years past, and I don't know that they'll ever figure that out. But I mean, baseball's kind of pushed to the back burner in college sports, and I mean, I get why they're not a huge revenue generating sport, but I mean, come on, they've got to figure something out with that. But anyways, besides getting off track here, going to the pitching staff, we've talked about Ben Hampton a little bit, but you and I talked about it before the season started. We didn't know what to really expect out of this pitching staff because it was kind of a hodgepodge of different things. You've got some transfers coming in, one from Tulane, one from Cal State Northridge. You got an inexperienced bullpen. I mean, there was just a lot of questions up in the air. And I mean, personally, I would say the bullpen's actually not been that bad through the first 7 games. They've had a couple of rough spots, Aiden Major particularly, but outside of that, they've kind of kept their head above water at least through this point.
I think that'd be a little generous. Man, he's had to throw a lot of arms out there at certain times. Sunday was bad uh, for the pitching staff. That was just a rough. Give up 15 runs. Um, could not stop walking to people. Couldn't get the ball over the plate. So when they've been bad, they've been really bad. Um, and I think that Georgia Southern may not have the offensive pop Arizona has, obviously, for a lot of reasons. But it could have gotten bad in Georgia Southern because they just couldn't get the ball over the plate. That's still going to be an adventure throughout the season, and it could really be their downfall. I mean, the offense have kind of carried them, in a couple of games, but pitching, yeah, you mentioned, Blaine Traxel just got Big 12 pitcher of the week. He's pitched in those innings. That's Cal State Northridge transfer. Great pickup by the staff. He's been great. Ben Hampton's been great. Gave up some runs, but has held the lead. He's at Friday night pitcher. When you're doing it on the road, that's tough. The home team's got all the momentum, but he's managed the game well on the road. He's 0-0, hasn't got a decision because of the bullpen. But they've done a lot of arms. You don't have you know, you're going into this weekend in the Virginia Central Classic. Don't have. I don't know who you're playing. You
Yeah,
probably got 2 viable starters. You're looking at Saturday, like, all right, you got one good outing from Florida too. It's just such an early sample size, but what you're seeing from the bullpen, I don't know if keeping it better their head above water is necessarily even a good thing. I don't know. Anyone thinks it's a good thing, but I don't even know if that's where they're at right now. I think they've gotten not lucky, but the offense has carried them a little bit. So they're going to have to figure it out. There's a lot of young arms. I know. I think he's a redshirt freshman. David Heigemans had shown some potential. Carlson Reed has come in and done okay at times. You mentioned Aiden Major. He had one good, I think, inning and a half or so, but his other 2 appearances has not been great. Really struggled to get the ball over the plate. These are all young arms. We talk about building a program, JJ. You've got some really good young arms on this staff, just not the experience quite yet. And when you're pitching on the road for the first time, a lot of these guys, this is their first college experience. So don't want to be too harsh on them, but it's a long journey, and they're going to get tested real quick here in March because they got like 5 games in one week out of North Carolina. They're doing like a whole North Carolina tour where they've got a couple midweek games. So there's going to be a lot of arms being we're going to see a lot of arms for Big 12.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna say that there's an Alek Manoah sitting somewhere in that dugout, but I'm
But
just saying but I'm just saying at one point in his career, obviously when he first got to West Virginia, Alek Manoah had some command issues, and that's just kind of what it is at that point
yeah,
in
I don't think anyone has. I had not seen. I mean, Manoa was a beast in Major League for a reason, but I haven't seen that type of power out of anybody yet. But you do see a lot of promise. Aiden Major does have some power. He just got to work mechanics. Ogden's that's fine. Just got to work on mechanics. So Hanson's not a guy that's going to throw by you, but man, he has a lot of command and he can put that breaking ball or whatever. He can get you chase the side and dirt. That's really where he's been dangerous. The rest of them, they'll find their way. They'll get there. I think you've got some good play from that for sure, a little bit. So it's kind of hold your breath when they go to the bullpen. It was like that last year. You just when the kid came out, you just didn't know was it going to be his day or was it not. Just wasn't a lot of consistency coming out of the bullpen. Only seven games in from a pitching perspective is so early. Like they don't pitch every day, so
right.
the jury's out. It's not been a great sample size. It's not been a really good sample size. As a 4-3, you don't want to really nitpick. You just kind of want to accept it. They found a way to win and move on.
And I think too, the biggest thing and I think Randy's probably touched on this in the past too, is if you can get a guy that can kind of morph into a really good midweek starter, that's really going to help you out in terms of your resume because you got to win those midweek games. I know it's only one game, but some of those are against the likes of like Pitt or Penn State or Marshall,
Maryland.
Maryland. I mean, those are very important games, and those are resume builders. So if you can win those games consistently, that's going to stack up the wins, and your tournament resume is going to look really strong all of a sudden. So they got to find that guy too,
I
and
think that
not have to be worried about the number 1, 2, and 3 guys.
they had their midweek home streak snapped last year. I think it was against Penn State, maybe. I don't remember. They lost against somebody midweek, and it was a bad loss. And that was something else that may have kept them out of the tournament last year, aside from going 0-2 in the Big 12 tournament. But yeah, those midweek games extremely important. They've had guys, prior to last year that were solid. Jackson Walker came in, um, and then he became the weekend starter. Usually, those are your freshmen, sophomore that are starting on the week that are eventually going to get to your weekend throughout the course of their career. But they just haven't really had that the last couple of years. You can blame NIL a little bit, little attrition as well, seniors left, all that good stuff. But they really haven't had that consistency midweek, and sometimes that's really it's been we're going to see 10, 11 arms from West Virginia in my
Yeah,
opinion. I mean, I've sat through a 5-hour game with Maryland West Virginia midweek where they 20 plus pitchers combined from both teams. It gets crazy sometimes. Kind of what makes college baseball fun. But yeah, we might see some of those games where it is a long, drawn out game. And I think it was Saturday's game. I think that has to be the fastest game that Mountaineers have seen in quite a while. It was like I think it ended in less than 2.5 hours. That has to be one.
that's very unusual.
Yes, and then you go to that to Saturday or Sunday. I think it was like almost 4 hours. So it gets an adventure, to say the least, in college baseball. But that's what makes it so fun when you got these guys. You see them develop when they're freshmen, redshirt freshmen, sophomore. Pitching is a lot like quarterback. You want to see them develop, gain some confidence while they're young. Throw them out in midweek situations, maybe in a closing situation. See where their strengths lie. And that's really what Maisie is with some of these guys. He kind of separated them a little bit in the preseason. Aiden Major is playing a relief role after starting last year. Yeah, it's just to me that progression of seeing pitchers try to find their niche, see where they're going to go, find their pitches. I kind of like that process and seeing it. It's frustrating when they're kind of here at freshmen, and you need them to pick up an out or two to kind of get them out of a jam, and they just can't get it over the plate. And you're like, oh, boy, here we go.
Hey, been there, done that, buddy. Been there, done that. Yeah, it's just it's a whole different jump. And I know like in baseball or basketball and football, guys are bigger, stronger, faster. Baseball, you just kind of look at it as, oh, it's just the same thing. Not really. I mean, there's a lot more to it than people realize.
Bigger than West Virginia, size wise. They were a lot bigger. The West End. When
Yeah.
you think people play and they start standing next to this catcher, you're like, wait a minute. Why are those guys so much smaller? It's just because they're freshmen sophomores right now. So JJ, he's still a little guy. I mean, I don't know too many big second basemen anyway, but
Right.
you know he's put on weight last year, and you know like I said, he's just a baseball player. Like he just fits the mold of a baseball player.
Yep. So West Virginia 4-3 through the first 7 games of the season. They have a big weekend coming up. They got Friday, Saturday, Sunday, William and Mary, VCU, and Richmond. So after that concludes, we'll be back here next week, probably Wednesday, to give you guys another weekly WVU baseball update here on Between the Ears. So for Christopher Hall, I'm Schuyler Callihan. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube at Mountaineers Now and give us a follow on Twitter at Mountaineers Now as well. So we'll see you guys next week. Until then, take care.